Hello?
Hello, Mikael.
Is this Zach?
Yes, it is. What's going on, my brother? How you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you? It's good to hear from you, man.
Dude, we're doing great, man. We just got done blasting Crash. Fucking,
oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
Which version?
The new one, man, featuring Brad Gillis and shit, man. Fucking.
Oh, man, that's awesome.
Hell yeah, dude.
Thank you.
Hell yeah, man. It's fucking awesome, dude. Sounds amazing, dude. So, how you been, man? What's going on in your world, dude?
Oh, man, it's crazy. I'm trying to work on a trailer for a movie that I'm scoring. That's going to be shown at a big convention out here in Dallas called Frightmare.
Nice.
The filmmaker gets a booth every year there, and he's going to be showing off this new trailer and selling stuff from his last film, which I mixed, but I did not score. So this time I'm scoring the film and mixing and writing original music, and there's even a version of Crash that's going to be in that movie as well. So,
dude, that's awesome.
Yeah, I'd say it's a cool slasher movie. I don't know if you like the horror genre, but
yeah, of course.
I'm big into horror movies. So I remember I was so excited because I don't know if you know this, one of my tunes got in the movie Hostel.
Yes, I love that movie, dude. I love that, man.
Yeah, do you remember the beginning of the movie when they're in Amsterdam and they go to that nightclub and they get in a fight with those European guys and get kicked out?
Yes.
Yeah, all the music in the background of that whole scene is mine.
Dude, that's fucking awesome, man. That is.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, that is so cool.
I thought so too. We got to go to the premiere and see this movie, and it seemed so crazy at the time. I was really excited because of him doing the Cabin Fever movie, which I really liked, and then I saw that Quentin Tarantino was producing this movie, and I was like, oh, I can't believe I'm in this movie. This is crazy.
Yeah. Quentin Tarantino produced it, and then it was directed by
Eli Roth.
Yeah, Eli Roth, who played in the movie about the fucking Nazis.
Yeah, he was in Inglourious Bastards, and he was also
the bear.
He was in Death Proof also.
Yes, dude. I love a huge fucking Quentin Tarantino fan, man. I love his fucking movies, dude. All that shit, man. Like, just that whole style of films, dude, especially from that era. Just, man, I miss it, dude. Like, I really wish he would, I know he said he's done, but
well, he's not done. He's going to do one more.
Yeah, come on, man. He's got to.
He hasn't figured out what he's going to do. It was going to be Star Trek, believe it or not, but then that fell through, so I don't know what he's doing next.
God, I can't even imagine.
I loved the movie Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I thought it was great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was amazing.
It was just a very interesting, odd film.
It was a cool take on the Manson fucking family story. There's so many documentaries and movies and stuff out there based on like that like specifically, but then he did that, which was like in the universe of that, but it was like surrounding it. It wasn't directly about that. It was just about some other people, but it was cool how he did that, man. I love that.
Yeah, me too. That whole kind of alternate universe vibe.
Yeah. And
just some of the ridiculous stuff, like, him having the acid dip cigarette and, from the hippie girl that was in the compound, and then he smokes it and goes ape shit on those guys that come out.
Yeah, and that dog.
It's just so great. And the dog, the dog was a great character in that movie. Just so many parts to love in that movie. Is just so interesting.
Hell
yeah. So I too am a lover of that era of filmmaking. I think that, we've got like a lot of, it kind of goes to this clip I just saw recently with Rick Rubin, where he's talking about how you have to make art for yourself first. Like, you have to make something that you're going to like, not something that you think someone else is going to like. Mm-hmm. And he actually said, and that's the problem with the film industry today, is that you got the MCU and all this stuff happening where it started out pretty good, and then all of a sudden you got a bunch of producers and directors trying to make movies that they thought other people would like.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, because I liked it when it started out with like Iron Man, and you know, the first Iron Man was great, and some of those movies were fantastic. The early X-Men movies pretty good.
Yeah.
But it just got worse and worse and worse over time until kind of like the Star Wars movies, the new ones.
Oh yeah.
Just didn't quite hit it. Like you could tell they were trying really hard, but again, they weren't really sticking to, I don't know, something that I really feel like that they really loved. It was almost formulaic and trying to hit a mark, and it missed it. So I think that the reason that kind of goes into like full circle into Crash. When I was working on that version of Crash that you played, honestly, I wasn't thinking about anybody else other than what I wanted to hear and what Wayne and I had talked about when he was alive, when we talked many times about redoing that track. And there's reasons why we wanted to redo it. It wasn't because we hated the original version or even the original video. We just felt that it wasn't quite the take or the vision that we would have done had we have been in total control. You know, at the time, there were a lot of forces happening. You know, we had Warner Brothers, we had DC, and we had Rhino all involved, all putting money into the video. And so, you know, when they're paying the bill and they say, hey, we want, you know, fake CGI bats and, you know, more cartoon footage in the video, then that's what they're going to get.
Right.
And you know, we love Batman. I mean, we were both Batman fans. I mean, hell, when was Batman in the fucking video, for God's sakes? But, you know, I think that just the set and us were Batman enough to carry it, and people would get the idea. I don't think you got to hit him over the head with a hammer and also put a ton of cartoon footage from the film in it and whatnot.
I know what you mean. Yeah, so sometimes being a little bit more subtle can actually do the trick better.
Yeah, and I don't even think it was even subtle. I mean, Wayne comes out with bat ears, like a bat suit on. It's pretty Batman. I mean, it's like we were looking at redoing the video, and my director friend and I are going, well, it's got to be Batman themed, because the Batman part's kind of baked in, because Wayne is Batman, so you really can't get away from Batman. So that's how we came up with the whole Joker Girl idea. You know, we're like, you know, well, we want to go somewhere darker with it, and we really like the Arthur Fleck character. It's pretty dark, but we were like, what if we made it a girl, and then had her doing, you know, that crazy dance and kind of getting into makeup and doing some of the antics that he was doing in the film that Joaquin Phoenix was doing, and it worked out. Not only did we like it, but when I showed it to Warner Brothers, they were absolutely dumbfounded that we were able to pull it off, and they just couldn't understand it. They were asking me, is this like extra footage that Len shot that we just didn't see, or that didn't make the original? I'm like, no, we reshot all that footage and added it in. They're like, whoa, like, who did you get to play the girl? Like, she's a really good actress. And they were just kind of dumbfounded that we were able to pull it off. But, you know, I was determined, and my friend who directed it is actually the guy doing the film that I'm scoring right now, and he's one hell of a talent with the camera, and he's been doing it a while, so we were able to make it happen. And again, we did what we thought we would like, and I believe Wayne would have liked it too. And the music definitely was more on the lines of what Wayne and I had talked about. You know, I don't know if I got it 100% right, because he wasn't here at the moment that I was doing the writing and putting it all together, but I definitely kept our conversations in mind and did the very best I could. And I have to believe that, you know, that he would be happy.
Hell yeah,
so,
man. Hell yeah. Well, you know, I got to ask too about Brad Gillis, man. How did you get Brad in on this?
Well, so Brad and I come from a small island town that most people have never heard of in the San Francisco Bay called Alameda. It was a small naval town back in the day during World War II and leading into the early 90s, actually. Then the base was decommissioned right after Clinton got elected. And anyway, it's a funny little town. A lot of pretty famous musicians have grown up there or spent time there, including Jim Morrison. Actually went to my high school, which is the same high school that Brad went to. Now, Brad is 10 years my senior. He's more like an older brother as well as a friend. But we met through a mutual friend on the island at a party that she was throwing right after we got signed to Warner Brothers. She was like, well, you should meet Brad Gillis. You guys just got a big record deal, and he'll want to know you because you guys are both from Alameda. So we met, and the very next day after the party, I was sleeping at the apartment where I was at, and I lived with a friend of mine from high school, and she was a really cool chick, and she was, known to be one of the hotter girls in my high school, and Brad knew her, and he showed up, and he had her wake me up, and he had brought me breakfast, and he's like, hey man, I brought you breakfast. I need you to come over to my studio and help me wire up all my MIDI, because you understand that shit. He's like, I don't know how to wire up the MIDI, so come over to my house. So I did that, and we were friends ever since, and we never really collaborated. I don't think he really even understood the music that we were making back in that period at Warner Brothers, either what we were doing or Static X. To be honest, it was a little out of his purview at the time.
Yeah.
But then, years later, so we never had collaborated, and then years later he called me up on the phone. I was in Louisiana at my girlfriend's old house, or my wife now, and he's like, what are you doing? And I go, I'm working on that Crash project I told you about, the one that I'm redoing for that anniversary release, with Wayne Static. And he's like, well, let me check it out, let me hear it, I want to hear what you're doing. I'm like, man, it's really rough. I just kind of put down a really rough demo of my idea for the song. I don't know, let me get it worked out a little bit more, and I'll send it over to you. And he's like, no. He's like, send it over to me, I want to hear it. I'm like, are you sure? He's like, yeah. So I sent it to him, and he literally called me back 10 minutes later, and he's like, dude, this is really good. He's like, I want to play guitar on it. I'm like, really? He's like, yeah. And I'm like, this is going to be a heavier kind of thing, not super heavy, but I want kind of more I don't know, imagine John 5 when he was in Marilyn Manson. I want kind of that vibe, kind of noisy guitars, a little bit industrial, but also, still rock and roll too. And he's like, no, dude, I can totally do that. And he's like, man, I want to do this. He's like, my girlfriend, I've got this new girlfriend, she's totally into this shit. She loves this track. I was playing her the demo. I want to play on this. So I said, okay, yeah, absolutely, I want you to play on it. So that night, he sent me back his guitar tracks, literally just hours later, and it was unfucking believable. It was just incredible. So I was like, wow. Dude. How can that happen? What a stroke of luck. Because I had a good friend of mine lined up, James Murphy, who used to play in Testament.
James Murphy's awesome, dude.
Yeah, he's a really good dude. We used to be roommates, and then we were kind of in the same complex where we had these live-work studio places out in Oakland, near where I grew up. And anyway, he was going to do it, but he got so tied up. He had so many projects deep that he was doing. He's like, dude, I'm sorry, I just got to get this one project done, and then it turned into another and another, and I was running out of time to turn it into Warner. So when Brad called and offered to do it, I just jumped on it, because I was like, look, I don't know when James is going to have time to do it. And before James, it was Paul Wiley was going to do it, who played with Marilyn Manson, and he got tied up because he was doing the soundtrack to Terrifier 2. And then he's like, dude, he called me, he's like, I totally was going to do this for you, but now they want me to move straight into doing Terrifier 3. As soon as I finish 2, I'm going right into 3, so I'm just not going to have time to do it right. So Brad came at the perfect time and did it and knocked it out of the park. And I'm really super proud to have him on there. And also, have the opportunity to collaborate with my friend, being such a legendary guitar player. I mean, the guy is, he's a living legend, really. Like, he's incredible.
Yeah, dude, I love Brad Gillis's playing, man. Like, the first Ozzy record that I ever bought when I was a little kid was Speak of the Devil. And I didn't even know, at the time, but later on I figured it out and, reading about it and everything. And that was Brad Gillis on there playing those fucking songs. And that's still to this day, like, one of my favorite fucking records ever, man. I just love the way that he played those songs on that record, man. He killed it, man. I always wished that they would have done like a studio record with him. I don't know what happened, but shit happened.
I know what happened. I can tell you what happened. I just happen to know somebody that knows. So what happened was, so the whole thing was Brad got the interview to play guitar through Pat Thrall. Through Preston Thrall, who was friends with Brad and his brother's Pat Thrall from the Pat Travers band. Yeah. And so when he was in Pat Travers, I guess Tommy Aldridge was playing drums for them. So Preston went to his brother and was like, "Hey, you got to get Brad get him an audition with Ozzy when Randy died." And so apparently Pat called up Tommy, and Tommy talked to Brad, and next thing you know, I guess Sharon called Brad, from what Brad told me, and he thought it was a spoof call. He just thought it was just someone fucking with him. After he'd been I think he was out partying the night before and was just like, they called him really early in the morning. He's like, "Who the hell is this? Like, what's going on here?" So he finally figured out that it was the real deal, and he flew out there with they sent him a ticket, and he had like I don't know, I think he said like $50 in his pocket, and that was it. And he went out there and he played guitar for Ozzy in his hotel, and Ozzy hired him on the spot. And then he kind of had to learn the tracks off a cassette. He knew a number of Ozzy tracks, but not enough to do a whole concert, So he's like in a hotel trying to learn them while Torme was doing the tour and wanting to leave because he didn't really want to be there. And so, he worked into the show, but he was telling me, that he was only 24 years old at the time. He was pretty young. Yeah. To get thrust into such an insane situation. It's enough to play with somebody of that stature, but to have to replace somebody who had just died, who was so beloved by the fans, immediately taken by the fans. And it was really hard because at first they were not, they weren't kind to him, from what he told me. But as the shows wore on, the word got out that he was the real deal, and the fans started to love him more and more, and he kind of won him over, and when I watched that footage of him playing those solos, and like how much he really honored Randy Rhoads' style and was able to play him pretty much note for note, and then still throw in a little bit of the Brad Gillis style too. Who can do that at 24 with like a week to learn all those songs and go out and stand in front of crowds that big? And I mean, that had to be nerve-wracking. For sure. God.
Yeah, I can't imagine, dude.
That's a level of responsibility right there that's insane, and that's what makes him a rock star. Like, he's like an old school, bona fide, for real rock star. He was the epitome of the rock star that we all grew up on and wanted to be when we were kids. And so I feel, just like I'm kind of, having this weird second wind later in life in my music, and being able to work with some really cool people and reach the fans and have them react really well to what I'm doing, be able to honor Wayne's legacy. And I gotta feel like he's smiling down on what's happening and giving me a nod, and it's just a great feeling.
Hell yeah, man. Well, tell us tell us, for the people out there listening that maybe don't know, like how long have you been doing this, and how exactly did you get into this, into the industry and everything, and like, how'd you get started, man?
Well, I don't think my story is all that unique. I mean, I started out as a kid playing guitar. I heard Eruption on the radio when I was like 10, and I was like, I got to play electric guitar. That's it.
Hell yeah.
I'd always liked music. I was buying, Beatles records and Rolling Stones records, and listening to the radio a lot of different rock acts that were on, FM radio at that time. But when I heard Van Halen, that was pretty much over. I mean, I couldn't even believe what I was hearing, and I was like, I got to play electric guitar. So my biggest dream was to learn how to play guitar like Eddie Van Halen and get signed to Warner Brothers, which was his label, and I accomplished half of that. I never got as good on guitar as Eddie Van Halen. I'm a decent guitar player for sure, definitely probably better than average, and I can play lead, but not at that level. And so as I'm going through my early adulthood, rock was kind of struggling. We're kind of in between the hair metal phase and the grunge phase. There was kind of this weird lull in between. I don't know if you remember, if you're old enough to remember.
Yeah. I'm almost 50, man. I remember.
So you're a Gen Xer like me. So
yeah.
So there was like a time where like the hair metal that got really big at that time, it started to get ridiculous. And it's nothing against the musicians that were doing it, because a lot of them were really talented, but the labels had kind of pigeonholed them into this kind of ridiculous pop music that was becoming more and more manufactured, almost boy bandish, with bands like Winger and White Lion and all that stuff. That again, like, no disrespect to the musicians in the band, Kip Winger is actually a really good musician.
No, they were great, man. They were
really good, but the music was not. It was sounding more and more controlled by the label and kind of orchestrated behind the scenes, rather than somebody like Ozzy, where he's writing his own tracks, or even early Motley Crue and all that stuff that kind of brought in the hair metal stuff, or Rat and some of the stuff we grew up on in the earlier 80s.
Well, it's kind of
Scorpions.
It's kind of like what you were saying about the film industry too. Like it's the money, man. Like the machine, the corporation behind all of it. They're pulling the strings, and they want to do things that they feel are like a certified formula that's going to make them money. And I feel like a lot of those bands got kind of pushed into that thing. Absolutely. Where it was like they just had, I believe a lot of them had like sort of like how Nashville does, like how they have the songwriters come in, and they write the songs, and they fucking, they have this thing already set up, and it's like a plan. And it's just, you can't really stray from that. But over time, I guess it got a little bit watered down, I guess you could say.
Yeah, except for in Nashville, like, they're actually making good music. I think LA tried to use the Nashville model for popular rock, or, the kind of the hair rock or hair metal or whatever you want to call it, the second kind of glam wave of metal. But it didn't work when they did it. When they do it in Nashville, it works. That system works really well down there. And there's another number of theories that I have for why it works better in Nashville for the country scene than it did for LA when they were doing that, and certainly not working now for popular music for sure. And it's not because I'm old. Like, popular music is just in general not that good now. There's always some standout tracks. I heard a track by Harry Styles called Thin Line the other day, and a friend played for me. He's not usually my kind of artist, but like, I had to admit, the track is kind of interesting. It's kind of very different for him too, kind of almost shoegazy, and I was like, okay. It's a 6-minute long track that sounds shoegazy. I don't think your label approved. I think maybe you actually went out and probably wanted to do this on your own, because I can't imagine any label wanting you to do a 6-minute long shoegaze track. But so I kind of, once in a while people will surprise you, but for the most part, the music is just so fake now. But getting back to my my story, I had a buddy. I didn't know what I was going to do with myself, because I was like, geez, I spent all this time learning guitar. Like, I studied jazz and classical guitar, and I was kind of a trained guitarist, and I was, I don't want to downplay it. I was pretty good. I wasn't maybe Eddie Van Halen good, but I was pretty good. Definitely good enough to be in a real band, and but there just wasn't much happening. And then one day, a friend of mine took me to a rave in like 1991, and it was one of those deals. Like, it wasn't this commercialized thing that it became. Again, money got into that scene. Every time money gets into a scene, it corrupts. Kind of like that song "Have a Cigar" by Pink Floyd.
Yeah.
It's like once the money comes in, it just ruins it. But so in those days, it was like you got a flyer, and then told you to show up at a certain point, and you showed up, and then you'd see some girl in the corner, and she'd hand you another flyer, and you go to another location, and you'd meet somebody with a flashlight, and they would wave you down to tell you to go down, another half a mile this way, and then you do this, for quite a bit, and then eventually you'd end up parking somewhere in some big dirt field somewhere, and then someone would meet you with a flashlight of your car and walk you like half a mile to a warehouse where they had broken in and set up a generator and had a party going, and you're just like, what the fuck is this? And I walk in, and it's just like crazy psychedelic videos all over the walls, people tripping their balls off, and this insane music that's being played. It was just like, it was super psychedelic sounding at that point. It was not so segregated by genre. It was just a mishmash of just like creativity with electronics, and I was like, wow, this is really crazy. This is kind of cool. I feel like I'm experiencing some form of like a modern electronic summer of love or something. This is nuts. And I go, man, this is going to be huge. This is going to be something really interesting. And I already really liked computers. I was a really early adopter. I learned how to program a computer when I was 11 years old in like 1980, and I was kind of a nerd in that way. So it was not a hard transition for me to go, well, maybe I'll get a computer and go and try and make some music using MIDI. My dad had always talked to me like, I don't know why you don't, fool around with MIDI. You're so good with computers. And I don't know, I just never did. I just wanted to play guitar. But at that point, I was more open to it. So I did, and I kind of fumbled around with it. I wasn't very good. But I had a couple friends that had made a hit song that ended up on a Chemical Brothers mixed album in their early days when they were first getting going, and they were kind of showing me the ropes and what they were doing production-wise, how they were producing, and I loved the challenge of it. Like, at that time, it was not easy music to make. You had to be able to interface all of this stuff together with a very crude software sequencer, and then to sync that with SMPTE to multi-track tape for any live instrument or live stuff that you were doing, and then hope that it all worked. It was pretty interesting and a lot of fun from a technological standpoint to work on the music and play with all the samplers and synthesizers and learn how to make acid and all the stuff, and acid meaning the synthesizer sound, not the drug. That's although that sometimes goes together, but and so it was really fascinating. So I really got into it, thinking that it would just kind of occupy my time, and I'd figure out what I'd do, and I'd get in a rock band as soon as kind of rock sorted itself out. But by the time grunge got ushered in, and at least a year before the first Smashing Pumpkins album came out, I already had made a record that became an underground hit, and I had sold 10,000 copies on my own. And at that point, if you could sell 10,000 copies of vinyl on your own, then record labels were starting to knock on your door, and you're getting a lot of press.
Absolutely.
We were getting a lot of like college radio play, and we were getting gigs DJing, which was kind of like, this is weird. Like, I'm DJing. I'm like this trained musician. Now I'm DJing. But at that point, we were doing it with vinyl, and it actually was kind of hard. I was like, this is not easy to do, to keep 2 records in sync and not fuck up and totally embarrass yourself in front of thousands of people at this big party. You got to really be on your game. It is kind of, I don't know if it's like playing an instrument, but there's definitely a skill that goes with it that's, you don't want to underestimate it. It's a lot harder to do for 2 or 3 hours than what someone might imagine. Nowadays it's different. You got computers that can sync things, and the creativity comes from other sources than turntablism, I guess you'd call it. But so we were doing that, and we got signed to a bigger label, and that label was City of Angels, which was the same label that the Crystal Method were on, and we're all still friends to this day, and we got our start there. And then that genre of music just got bigger and bigger, and we went to major labels. Mephisto Odyssey went to Warner Brothers, and Crystal Method went to Outpost, which was, I think, a division of Interscope, and the rest is kind of history. But we had all had kind of like a psychedelic, edgy, kind of almost rock influenced, industrial influence. We obviously liked Ministry like Wayne did, but we're taking it from more the electronic side, and he was going more on the rock side. And I think that's why our A&R rep, because we shared the same A&R guy, Troy Wallace, when we were on the label, and I think he saw something that we didn't even see initially, which is when he introduced us, was like, hey, it would be really cool if my 2 bands got together and did work together. And it may have seemed like kind of like an odd pairing, but it really wasn't, because we were already heading in a more of an edgy rock direction with a lot of our tracks, and they were already very electronic for being a metal band, because they were more of an industrial metal band than really truly a new metal band, and so that's how that all came to fruition.
That's really cool, man. You're and that makes me think about back then in the early 90s, that transition when grunge and all that different kind of stuff started coming in. I remember watching Headbangers Ball like religiously back in those days, and like early 90s, I remember when stuff like Nine Inch Nails and Ministry, White Zombie, shit like that was
loved all that stuff.
It was
I just
absolutely
loved all that.
Yeah, it was great. We didn't think anything different of it. Like, we didn't really think like, oh no, this is gonna destroy anything, or I don't know. Like, it was just sort of natural, like it just got into it, and then it just sort of spiraled out of there, and then like there were so many different things that came from that, which were really cool.
Well, rock was evolving, and and really Trent was an absolute innovator, because think about it. Pretty Hate Machine came out in 1989. It was still in the 80s. For an album that is that groundbreaking, the only other album that I can think of that was that far ahead of its time was the first Jane's Addiction record. Was like completely ahead of its time, which I believe it came out in 86. And if you listen to that record and then compare it to everything else that was coming out that year, it's not even on the same planet. It's like a whole different thing, and it was so unique and so groundbreaking. But Trent was the same way. He just had created, and again, he was doing music that he liked, and it was very apparent that he was doing something that he really loved and believed in, and he had a very strong vision for what he was about and where he wanted to take it. And the same goes true with bands like you said, like Ministry, and like The Prodigy, who were on the electronic side of industrial. who were a huge influence on me. I loved them since back when they did Charlie. I mean, I heard them and I was like, man, I love this band. And a lot of guys that were really heavy house heads and stuff, they didn't really like the Prodigy. I think it was maybe just a little bit too weird and too heavy and breaking too many of the rules for them. But I always loved that band. And then, of course, you know, like Smashing Pumpkins, and of course we all know that Wayne and Billy had a connection for a short time, and which is really interesting.
And then another thing I wanted to ask, mention too, was like the film, you know, with movie soundtracks too. Like that became a huge thing in the mid '90s with all these different soundtracks coming out. You know, a lot of people nowadays probably don't even realize like how important that was back then, but you could find out about a lot of different bands back then from the soundtracks. You know, like I remember, speaking of one, Lords of Acid, I've got a new track that they just sent out that we're gonna be playing tonight too. But I remember hearing them on what was it, that movie Slither?
Oh yeah, you're right, and that's a great movie too, by the way.
I loved it. I was like, "What the fuck is this? This is
fun.
Great," you know. But like, I never listened to techno before that, and then I went out and bought the tape and was jamming it, and it was cool, man.
But again, Lords of Acid, they ride that line between like, they're also on that kind of electronic industrial edge. Mm-hmm. Different than the Prodigy for sure, and not as rock and roll as like Ministry, but definitely there's a lot of hybrid music happening and a lot of experimentation in that area of adding electronics and rock and roll together in all different forms and across the spectrum, and that's really kind of what Static X came out of, because they really, again, they weren't really truly new metal. Matt and I were talking about that the other day, that they were different than everybody else. You know, most of the other bands kind of sounded like Korn came out, and Korn had a very distinct sound, and that was a band I immediately latched onto and liked from the get-go, because they were the first band to like be coined that new metal. They got that new metal coining, and I heard it and I was like, man, that's a cool sound. They've got something interesting. And then there's a lot of bands that came out after that actually did well, and they had good songs, but they were a little derivative of that sound. You could tell that the labels were kind of like, we need our Korn.
Yeah, totally.
And
Static X,
and nothing wrong with it. There's some bands that actually have a little bit of that sound that I listen to today, and I like their songs a lot, and I could name them, but I don't want to, I don't want anybody to think that I'm, calling them out for being derivative, because I'm not, because people could say that Mephisto Odyssey was derivative of, the Prodigy and the Crystal Method, and, even though we were all contemporaries, but yeah, I mean,
no, Static X was heavy, dude.
They were different, yeah.
And
Matt was talking about that. Did he tell you that story when he was walking down Sunset Boulevard, and he already had kind of known them, but he hadn't really heard them live yet. And he walked into, they were playing at the Whiskey, and he was like, it was just a madhouse in there. And I hadn't seen them yet. At that point, I was still coming up. I don't even think I'd signed to Warner yet, or was maybe being courted by them. And I was heavily pushing our gigs in more of the rave culture scene. And, but he got to see them, and he said it was just like this madness of like this, it was, in his words, dripping sexuality and this kind of masculine, almost violent energy at the same time. Like it was a very different mix of sounds, and part of it was that industrial edge that they very deliberately worked into their sound that made them so unique and so special. And they were doing something that was influenced by Ministry. Wayne never made any bones about that. I mean, he told me when we first met that was one of his favorite. When you're young, you're going, who are some of your favorite bands? It's a question that you ask every new friend or any friend that you meet.
Yeah.
And Ministry was on that list, and Kiss also, But Ministry stuck out because I remember really liking Jesus Built My Hot Rod, and also remembering Ministry back when they were like almost like a goth band on their first album. That people probably don't remember that in the early 80s, you know. And so I was like, okay, that's cool. But I feel like that Wayne just already had this spark where he knew how to write a hook and present it, and his voice was so entrancing for being heavy like that I knew they were going to go really far. And I remember when Troy called me, he's like, hey, that metal band that I told you that I signed, or that he didn't sign them actually, another A&R rep signed them. And the story goes that I got from Troy was that rep, right after he signed Static X, got fired, and so every week they would have an A&R meeting at Warner Brothers where all the A&R reps would sit down with the head of A&R, and they would talk about the different projects they were doing, maybe play some music from different acts they were scouting or about to sign or had signed. And in the meeting they were like, look, what are we going to do with this band Static X? Do we drop them or do we keep them? And basically, as I remember the story, Troy told me that they were going to drop them there. Like, look, if one of you guys aren't going to take this band on, we're going to drop them. And Troy said, well, I went to go see them and I thought that there was something interesting there, something special there. So I'll take them on. I'll take them. And so Troy took them, and literally about 6 or 8 months later, they were already at a gold record. So Troy obviously was right.
Oh yeah.
And just like he was right to stick us together, and stick me and Wayne together, really, because Wayne and I met and we had an instant chemistry, and there was an instant kind of friendship there. It was interesting because we started collaborating. First, he brought me in on the Push It remix, at which he was involved in kind of shaping and overseeing, because it was really precious to him, and I liked him being involved in overseeing it, and we got what ultimately we both wanted out of that track. And then he liked working with me, so we went right to Crash, which he offered to do a track on our album, because at that time it was really customary for bands that were kind of electronic production style bands that were leaning more on the electronic side to have a lot of guest vocalists. So Wayne was like, I'll totally do a track for your album. I was like, fuck yeah, I've got a song I think that would be perfect for you. It's called Crash, and I'd written it a couple years earlier with a friend of mine, Michael Morris, who happened to be the original founder of a band called Faith No Man, which later became Faith No More. And some of those early songs that he wrote with Michael Borden and stuff ended up being the beginnings of some of the songs that were some of the early hits.
That's badass.
And so, yeah, so it's a very incestuous, 6 degrees of separation kind of thing. It's weird. And so I sent him the song, and in those days, I had to mail him a CD. We barely had CD burners at this point. Okay, I had to FedEx it to him, because he was down in LA and I was in the Bay Area, and he heard it and he was like, "Yeah, this is really cool. I can definitely do something with this for sure." So he came up to my studio with Koichi during Ozfest when they were going to play Ozfest, and we recorded. First, actually, Wayne and I paired off and we finished writing. He's like, I got an idea, a couple ideas for the song. I got an idea for the hook. And we sat in a room across from each other and worked on it until we refined it. And then we went in and recorded it. And it was effortless. It was really kind of magical. I hadn't, I'd had good times collaborating with people, but very few of them were that effortless where you're just like, yeah, this is going to be a really good track, and we're really not having to work that hard for it to happen. It's just all falling into place and happening the way it should. the way you imagine, or the way you hear other bands talk about it when they talk about something happening, they make it seem easier than it probably was. But for this song, it was just very natural. And so we went in and knocked it out that afternoon, and Koichi contributed guitars as well as some keyboard parts that he had brought, some kind of on the more Static X side, and we used a lot of that too. And that's how that happened. Where we felt it was missing the mark of what our original vision was, well, I knew we had something special, and I told Troy, I was like, look, I know we don't have a lot of money in the budget, but we got to have a mixer to mix this track. This track's too important to not have a mixer. Like, I'm not a mix engineer. Like, I know that I am acting as a mix engineer for the band, but I'm really a producer and a songwriter. I'm not who can engineer, but at the time I didn't have a lot of experience mixing. Now I'm actually, not to toot my horn, I'm a really good mix engineer. Like, I'm probably, I would say probably better than a lot of people who are a lot more well known than me, which should be evident in the Crash mixes. I mean, I would think, but back then, maybe not as much. I was still learning, and I was still coming up on that end of the engineering side of things. So Troy agreed, but instead of auditioning people to mix, we had a very strict budget, and there was only a certain group of engineers that were willing to work within our budget. And the guy that was willing to do it, he's a terrific engineer, and he's still a guy that I talk to, and he's Grammy award winning. He's an incredible guy, but he just didn't really understand what we were doing. There probably were, to be fair to him, there's very few people that would have understood at that time what we were doing. It may seem like pedestrian now to listen to it. Crash sounds so obvious to any listener now. They're like, oh yeah, the original Crash is so much that early 2000s sound. It's so cool and so retro. But at the time, it was actually really cutting edge in a way that a lot of people didn't understand what the fuck we were doing. They're kind of like, what the fuck is this? And so the mix that we ended up getting was a standard rock mix that didn't really serve the song in the way that we wanted to. And then with the video not being quite the way we wanted, it was close. I mean, certainly Len Wiseman shot it. I mean, look at the footage that I got. I mean, when I saw that footage come back when they pulled those film canisters out of storage and put them on a telecine and put them to 4K ProRes files and shipped them out to me, my mouth hit the floor when I saw that footage, how good it looked. Like, I thought I was going to have to color correct it. I thought all kinds of stuff, and it looked like it does. What you see is what I saw when it came to me. We did very little color correction or any messing with it. What we did have to do is we had to do a lot of green screen work. There was a lot of green screen in the movie because of the cartoon footage, and that was in the background in a lot of the shots with us. And so the guy that did the green screen gets a lot of credit because he did it for free. He did it just because he loved Crash and he loved Static X, and he actually loved Mephisto Odyssey. He knew our bands and did it just for the love of it. And I was doing it for the love of it. I haven't made any money off this song, just to let the listeners know, like, I'm actually tens of thousands of dollars in the hole, especially after the last minute fiasco with Edsel and what happened with him interfering with the label and trying to stop the release at the last minute. And I had to hire an attorney, and it pretty much bankrupted me, to be honest with you. But I wasn't going to let him stop the release, and so I fought tooth and nail, and we managed to get it out to the fans, thank God. But it was touch and go, and it was a little bit of luck that allowed that to happen, with a lot of fighting and a lot of money spent, and it shouldn't have been that way. And I'm a little salty about it, I got to be honest with you.
I don't blame you, man. Well, dude, I hate to do it, man, but we're running short on time, so I got to ask, is there anything else you want to let the people know? They're out there listening.
Yeah. Everybody knows that Crash Reborn and the original version was redone and in 4K and is up on the official Mephisto Odyssey. That's at Mephisto Odyssey Official on YouTube. Go check it out. The Crash Reborn with Brad on it is, I think, up to about 1.4 million views over the last several months, which is great. And
that's insane.
Hoping it'll keep climbing. And the new version's up to about, we just dropped that a couple weeks ago or a few weeks ago, and that's up to 250,000 already, or no more than that, 1/3 Actually, it's up to about 350,000 views or something. So everybody go check that out. I also did a remastering of the version of Push It that Wayne and I did that was on the single with the original version. That went up on our YouTube as well. Please go check that out and support that. I have more stuff coming out because I don't know if your listeners know, but I actually did a lot of work with the band. I also did a remix of Cold that I want to redo because that was a very special remix. It ended up being in a fan contest where they gave away these what have become very rare CD singles that just had my remix on it out to the winners of this contest. And so, I mean, I didn't even have a copy of it. I had to go and find one on eBay, and I had to spend like $150 like 5 or 10 years ago to get a copy of it. Like, that's how rare it is. I don't even know what it would cost you now to find a copy of it. But so that's something I'd like to let the fans out there know. And the last thing is, I guess everybody knows that Push It single from 1999 went gold. And Warner Brothers did give me a gold record for my participation in that single.
Hell yeah.
And that's awesome. What a way. I had no idea. I can't imagine. Like, first I redo Crash and in the vision of what Wayne and I had always talked about. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, like a gold record drops out of the sky that I was involved in. Unbelievable. Like, I feel so fortunate. So I'm a lot more happy than upset, even though I am at a little bit of a financial deficit. So hopefully maybe some gigs will come out of this and some other stuff down the road as I'm getting my name back out there. Because I did take a 10-year hiatus from music to start a family, and I had 3 kids. So that's so I'm getting back on the horse, as they say. But it's been pretty good. Been really good so far.
Hell yeah. Well, Mikael, hopefully everything fucking shit's gonna work out, dude. Somehow it's gonna work out, man. I feel it, man. And but I just want to say, say, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us and tell us about all this, man. I really appreciate it, dude. And before I let you go, can I get you to make us a station tag real quick?
I will. Absolutely. You want me to do it right here, right now?
Yeah. Whenever you're ready, say something like, "This is Mephisto Odyssey, and you are listening to Metal Devastation Radio."
I can do that. All right. This is Mephisto Odyssey, and you are listening to Metal Devastation Radio, the greatest metal and rock radio station on the planet.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Well, thank you, brother. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us.
Yeah, and look out for new stuff from us. It's going to be definitely a lot more. I think when we go back on the road, it's going to be a band project now, and it's going to be a lot more heavily rock influenced, although don't worry, we're not going to lose the heavy electronic edge to it as well. So it'll be its own thing. It won't be exactly like Static X or anything, but it's going to be, I'm pushing more into the rock realm. I'm just really feeling the rock vibe, and I don't really have to adhere to anything that a label tells me to do. I can just do my own thing. Seems to be working so far. The fans like it. So we're going to go with that. So look out for more of what I did with Crash down the road.
Hell yeah, dude. What I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna blast some more. I've got that Static X Push It fucking mix that you just did, man. Fucking, I'm gonna play that right now, man.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, dude.
All right, Zach, you have a good one, and everybody out there, you guys, I hope you're doing well. and hope to see you guys when we get back out on the road eventually.
Absolutely, man.
All right, brother. Cheers. Talk to you soon.
Cheers, man. Thank you. There you have it, folks. Mephisto Odyssey live on the Zach Moonshine Show with Metal Devastation motherfucking radio. Like I said earlier, put your speakers in your windows, put them in your front lawns, put them in your neighbor's driveway. Do whatever you got to do, man. If you don't see U-Haul trucks everywhere tomorrow, what the fuck are you even doing, man?